Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining the Spiritist Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm very happy to host this talk today by Marcelo Medeiros, who will be talking about the importance of silence in our lives. Let's give Marcelo a very warm welcome. And before he starts his presentation, allow me to introduce him. Marcelo Medeiros joined Spiritism in the 2000s and has been actively involved in the Spiritist community in the United States since 2012, offering his expertise in media communications. He currently resides in Georgia and plays an active role as a member of the Caritas Spiritist Group. In his professional life, Marcelo works as a journalist in Atlanta. Marcelo, thanks so much for joining us, and it's all on you now. Take it from here.
Hi, Luis. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for this invite, and thank you everyone all of you who are joining us and watching us, having this moment to study and to reflect a little bit about this topic of silence. And the reason I wanted to bring this topic today is because I have already talked in the past about the power of the word, and I work with word and communication. So usually we have like tons of books and tons of TED talks and these and that, talking about how to speak, how to improve the way we speak, when to speak, the perfect languages and pronunciations and ways to express ourselves. But it is also important for us to think about the silence that we have in our daily lives. So for me, it was good to have this moment to study this topic and also look back and see through my actions and my life, how can I improve that, and how I use or I do not use the silence in my daily life. And so we can all together here see the importance of that and how each one of us we can improve the use of silence according to the teachings that Jesus brought to us, that the Spiritism brings to us as well. So before talking a little bit about the Spiritism and all these teachings that we have, let's think for a while about all the sounds and all the noises that we have in our life, about sound pollution. It is a very important topic today because it is considered a health issue. We in our lives we are surrounded by noises. If you see the examples that I have here on the screen, we have our cell phones. They are on 24/7 with many apps. We have to watch movies, to listen to music, or to talk to other people. We have, if we live in a big city or if we need to commute to a big city on a daily basis, we have all this traffic with many cars and trucks and motorcycles around us. It can be really noisy many times. And even if we are inside of cars, many times we close the windows, and what do? We turn on the music, and then we are also surrounded by the noises from outside, the noises from inside, and we have here the TV, the speaker. And it's interesting because while I was thinking about this topic, I remember a few conversations that I have with some colleagues in the past few weeks, few months, and some of them, they were saying that they cannot stay in their own home in completely silence. They need to turn on the TV or turn on the radio because they need to have a background noise while they're doing their daily activities. And a few times, many of us are like them. We feel this necessity of having the noise around us, can be a TV on at the time we're going to sleep to help us sleep, or having some kind of music. So many times we do not notice that, but we have sounds, this sound pollution around us basically 24/7. So not only this sound around us, but also we have the sounds of our talks or of our conversations. How much do we talk every day? According to researchers, we speak around 15 8,000 to 16,000 words a day. That means that all the time we are or talking or listening to someone else. If you're at work, if we are at home, or we may be on the phone. So not only we have these sounds around us, these noises, but we also have, of course, the conversations, and they are really important to us. But a few times we need to think about it, about when to talk and how to talk, if we're talking too much or not. So we are going to talk a little bit about that, think a little bit about that. So before going to the teachings from Spiritism, I wanted to bring one definition that we have about dialogue, because as we see talks, and many times, as I said in the beginning, we have many workshops, many books, uh, many studies about how to improve the way we talk and the way we dialogue to others. And so I brought here one teaching from a specific book. It is The Reach of Dialogue, Confirmation, Voice, and Community. And it is one of the communication theory. And when they talk about dialogue, they explain this. The dialogue is a dimension of communication quality that keeps communicator more focused on mutuality and relationship than on self-interest, more concerned with discovering than with disclosing, more interested in access than in domination. So I wanted to bring this so we can start to think about how important it is when we are in a dialogue, when we have a dialogue. It's not only important what we say, but also what we listen to. So it is, as they say here, it is a relationship of mutuality. We are not interested in disclosing what we have, but also in discovering what other people have, what they have to say. And for us to do that, we need to have this moment of silence. At least we need to silence ourselves in order to be able to listen to the others, to give others the opportunity to talk. So it's important for us, when we think about it, when we see the importance of the word, the importance of how we talk in our daily lives, how important it is to have these moments of silence, beginning understanding that it is when we are silent that we can allow others to speak. We can allow others to say what they have to say. And in my opinion, one of the greatest example, of course, that we have about that is Jesus. And we are going to see how Jesus used to do that while he was here incarnate on earth among us. But before that, let's go to the Spirits book to see what the Spirits also who help Kardec with the codification, they have to say about that. So it's in the question 772. In this question, Kardec is talking about the vow of silence. He's asking about the vow of silence, and the Spirits, they say that in the world we live in, we do not need the vow of silence. So they are against that. Because we live in a society and we need to interact with others. So if we go and live alone in a tiny place without communicating with anyone, how are we supposed to evolve? How are we supposed to learn? But they say the following about the silence. They say you should ask yourselves whether speech is found in nature and why God has created it. God condemns the abuse, but not the use of the faculties that have been given to humankind. Silence is useful because you gather your thoughts when you practice it. Your spirit has more freedom and can enter into more intimate communication with us. So here we see another aspect of the silence. When we are in silence, not only we allow others to talk to us, but also we allow us to listen to ourselves. We allow us to have that moment to gather our thoughts and also to communicate or to receive this message, this intuition from our guardian angels, from the high elevated spirits and the spirits around us. Let's just think for a moment what happens, for example, if we face some situation when we get desperate, when we are in affliction, if we start to scream, if we start to go out of control, and how can we hear any voice at that moment? No matter if it is someone next to us trying to calm us down, no matter if it is the voice of our guardian angel. So in those moments, we need to silence ourselves. So the same happen in many different moments in our lives. And it's interesting what they say, like God condemns the abuse, but not the use. So they are talking specifically about the vow of silence. So God condemns if we abuse of that, like if you are going to live in a tiny place without communicating with anyone else, but he does not condemn the use. The use, silence is useful, so we just need to know how to use it. And so, as I said, one of the, the best example, of course, that we have here is the example of Jesus. And I brought a few examples from the book Jesus in the Home, because in my opinion, it is one of the best books that I have read, that give me the opportunity to know Jesus in a different way, different from what we have in the gospel, in the Bible, because here we have different stories talking about the meetings that Jesus used to have at Simon Peter's house. So we start to see all these meetings, all those stories that Neio Lúcio brought to us through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, we are going to notice how Jesus acts. And also we can notice the moments of silence that Jesus had during his talk. So this first one, Jesus in the first chapter, Christian worship in the home, Jesus is asking Peter about how different professionals prepare their day of work. And so he asks a few questions to Peter. Peter gives Jesus the answers, his own explanations, and then Jesus didn't say anything for a few moments and then explained. So we see here that Jesus listened to Peter. He stays silent for a moment, just gathering his thoughts, seeing observing the situation, and then he gives his explanation. Then he gives the lesson. If we go to the third chapter, explanations by the master, this chapter, Sarah, the wife of Benjamin, she was explaining how difficult it was for her to forgive offenses. Peter also gave his own opinion, and then what Jesus did. Everyone present had a look of longing expectation, wondering what the Lord would have to say. After a long silence, he asked. So Jesus waited. He didn't, like, as soon after Peter spoke, he gave the explanation. No, he waited a little bit, also giving others the chance to gather their thoughts. And then Jesus gave the explanation. If you see this other lesson, number 6, the tools of perfection, in this one, Peter was talking about how sad he was feeling about some relatives, the way the relatives were treating him. So here, Neio Lúcio says that he described the conflict with his skin while Jesus listened in silence. Again, we see Jesus listening in silence. Jesus didn't interrupt Peter. Jesus didn't ask Peter to stop or gave some advices. No, he was listening that in silence. And if we do not help the needy person who is right there beside us, how can we help afflicted persons who are far away? So that's what Jesus says. If we do not love the brother or sisters who breathe the same air with us, how can we devote ourselves to the Father in heaven? So after Jesus gave that explanation, in light of these questions, no one dared break the expressive silence that hung in the air to that modest room in Capernaum. So we see that it's like a pattern that happened. Like Jesus would listen to them, moment of silence. Jesus would give the explanation he had to give, then another moment of silence for them to reflect about what Jesus just brought. And the same happens in many other chapters. So if we keep reading, we'll see like how the way that Neio Lúcio describes Jesus For example, I just brought a few ones for us to see here. For example, in the second one, a gentle silence hung over the simple room. After a few minutes, the master set his clear eyes on the small group and concluded. So all those lines are from the end of each chapter. So we see that Jesus listens to them, then he have this moment of silence, like in this one here. Uh, Jesus felt silence, thoughtful, and a prayer of love and understanding completed the lesson. Or the Lord remained silent for quite a while, but none of those present there make a comment. So we see that Jesus keeps silence because he wants others to speak. He wants others to gather their thoughts, to reflect about what he had just said. So we see how important it was, because many times we focus on the words that Jesus brought, like on the teachings that Jesus brought in by using his words. But it's important for us also to understand the teachings that Jesus brought to us by using his silence. And here, so I brought two examples from the gospel. So if we see Matthew 26:62, like the final moment of Jesus here incarnate on earth. So Matthew says that then the high priest stood up, it is Caiaphas, and said to Jesus, "Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?" But Jesus remained silent. So at that moment, Jesus was being accused, and the high priest was asking a few questions to him, but he remained silent. Why did he do that? Was it going to be worth if or helpful if Jesus tried to explain? Imagine Jesus trying to explain, "Hey, I'm the governor here of this world. I'm like a pure spirit. I came here to teach all of you. So that's why everything here is happening." Do you think that Caiaphas would have understood Jesus? Jesus knew that he wasn't ready to understand. Jesus knew what that what was happening at the time. It was happening because we here on earth at that moment we weren't ready to understand all those teachings. Like that's what why all of that happened. So it wasn't with a few words at that final moment that Jesus would change his destiny, or what he was going to face here in this physical world. And also we see in Matthew 27:12, Jesus before Pilate, when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, the great amazement of the governor. So here we see again that Jesus was being accused. They were asking Jesus to explain himself, but uh, Jesus opted not to talk, to keep silence. And those are huge lessons for us, because we need to understand that depending on the moment that we are in our lives, depending on the situation, especially, the best thing that we can do is to keep silent. We cannot keep saying words. We cannot try to argue, because many times our arguments are not going to be worth at that moment. And by seeing that, and we see that Jesus examples by not only his words, but the way he act, how he act, those ways, those examples are valuable lessons to us. So many times it is not in words that we're going to find the best example or the best way to show our opinions, or to show to others who we are and the way we act. And now I brought this teaching here from the Spirits Review 1860. In this one, Kardec is talking about the material charity and moral charity. This is a message received by medium Mrs. DB. He didn't give us the last name of the medium. And this is what part of the message that says, "Moral charity consists of supporting one another. That is the least done in this inferior world where you are now incarnated. Hence, be charitable for you shall advance more in the path of good. Be humane and bear one another. There is great merit in knowing when to be silent, so that the fool may speak, and this is a form of charity. Go silent when the mockery leaves the jester's mouth. Don't notice the sarcastic smile in the mouths of those who wrongly judge themselves above you when in the spiritual life. The only true life, they are sometimes far off. There is merit, not of humility, but of charity in this, because it is moral charity in not seeing others' mistakes. So for me, it was really interesting to see and to reflect about that, how silent can also be a form of charity. Like if we keep silent before someone who is mocking us, before someone who may be saying something because the person is ignorant in the aspect that the person does not have knowledge enough to talk about a specific topic, or the person doesn't know the whole situation. So many times, as Jesus did, if we see the examples, the two previous examples from the gospel, Jesus was being charitable. Jesus was listening to what people had to say, the accusations that he was suffering, but Jesus was being charitable at that moment because he knew that they didn't know better. They knew that even if he tried to explain the truth, they wouldn't understand. So it was a way of Jesus. It was also a lesson from Jesus showing us how to be charitable in those moments by keeping these silence moments. And now, another lesson that I brought from this time from the Gospel according to Spiritism, if we see the chapter 20, the last hour workers, and number five, sorry, number 5, the Lord's workers. So they will say that happy will be those who will have said to their fellow beings, brothers and sisters, let us work together and let us unite our efforts so that the master will find the work finished on his arrival. Because the master will say to them, come to me, you who have been good servants. You have laid down your jealousies and disagreements so as not to leave the work unfinished. So I brought this because here in this English version we have this. There was this word, "you who have laid down." We have this verb "lay down," but if you go to the French version, this the original one, "faire taire," can also be translated by "silence." So I thought it's very interesting to see, because if you see the same sentence that we saw before, lay down, but if you read with the verb silence, it will be, come to me, you who have been good servants. You have silenced your jealousies and disagreements so as not to leave the work unfinished. So they also say the importance of silencing our jealousies, our disagreements. And this brings to me one example that I would like to bring now is because today we use a lot of social media. So many times we are talking about words, not spoken words, but written words. And we can also be silent in those situations. How many times don't we see those arguments, those disagreements happening online? A poster on Twitter or on X, people can like post something there, and then we are going to see many people replying, and we see those huge arguments, no matter if it is about politics, especially politics today, but some other topics, and people are going to be engaging in that situation. If you see Instagram, for example, it's social media that, in my opinion, it brings a lot of jealousies, because we can see people with their perfect lives, perfect in a way, like because they try to show themselves as always happy and in good places, and it can also bring jealousy to others and to us. So how important it is also for us to keep this silence online, keep this silence also in the written world. So not to go there and to reply to posts, to reply to other people, and also like replying to email. How many times it's better for us to, if we receive an email and that email like someone disagreeing with us, someone complaining about us, and how, or a text message. The first impulse that we have is to, at the same moment, reply, to send another text, to send another email with our arguments. But how are we doing that at that moment? And if we can at least silence ourselves, our thoughts for a few minutes, maybe for an hour, maybe for a day, we wait 1-2 days to reply to that person. How useful is that? We will have the time to gather our thoughts. We will also give the time for the other person maybe to think about what they wrote, maybe to change their own opinion. So we can see these lessons that was brought here to us, how it can be used in our daily lives in many different situations that at the time of Kardec, they didn't need to face that, like the social media or these online situations that we have today, but how we can bring those teachings and apply those teachings in our daily lives with this new technology that we have. Another example that I have here from the book Heaven and Hell. This is from chapter 7, Earthly Expiations. So it is the spirit of Mr. Latio that is talking to Kardec through a medium. In this spirit, he had a terrible or horrific death, as they describe in Heaven and Hell. He suffered for 24 hours before discarnating after an accident. And so a few days after he discarnated, Kardec evoked the spirit to one of the meetings they had. And this is a little bit about what he said. I brought here one sentence because I think it's very interesting for us to think about it. He said, throughout the agony, no one heard him. And this is about this is actually first the description about how Mr. Latto was behaving during this terrible accident that happened. They said throughout the agony, no one heard him utter one single groan, one single murmur. He died praying to God. So here we see that instead of screaming, instead of complaining, instead of saying anything that he could be saying, he stayed like silent, praying. So silence and prayer throughout his agony. So this, only this would be excellent example to us how a person can keep silence, can keep silence and praying. As we saw, like when we silence our thoughts, we can connect ourselves to the higher spirit. So he was doing that throughout those hours that he was suffering. And then through his communication, he tells Kardec, however, I have a consoling spirit who hasn't left me since I breathed my last. I was still able to speak when I saw him already at my side. I thought that a reflection of my pain was making me delirious and causing me to see ghosts. But no, it was my guardian angel who silently and quietly consoled my heart. As soon as I left the earth behind, he said, come, my son, greet the new day. So here we have two examples of silence. We can see how Mr. Lattil, he kept silence throughout his final hours, like keeping silence and praying, keeping silent and praying, how it helped him also to connect to his guardian angel who was by his side, but he didn't say a word. Like his guardian angel was there, but he didn't say a word until Mr. Latcher was prepared to listen to him. So he was just there by his side. Of course, we know that, like giving he all the healing that he needed at a time, trying helping to disconnect his spiritual body from the physical body. But he was there supporting him, showing that I'm here for you. And at the right moment, then he said, come, my son, greet the new day. So he was there just waiting for the right moment to say the right words. And here one more lesson that I brought here from the gospel, we have in Matthew 6, verse 6, then Jesus is saying, but when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray for your Father who is in secret. Your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So we can see that example. Like when Jesus is saying here, go to a room and shut the door, it's not saying for us to isolate ourselves, to go to a place where nobody's going to see us, nobody's going to listen to us. No, he's saying like go to our room and shut the door, like in our own mind. We can be in the middle of the traffic. That one of the first pictures that I brought here. We can be in the middle of the traffic, inside our cars with, or inside a public transportation with many people surrounding us. We can, even at that moment, we can go to our own room, like be quiet. We can shut the door, like shut the door to the outside noises that we have, to the outside thoughts that we have, and pray. And as we saw in the example of Mr. Latio, he did that. He was in that moment of agony with his family around him, more people around him, but he was able to shut the door and to pray to God and to his guardian angel. And we saw how he was hurt because his guardian angel was right there by his side during the whole moment, listening to him and helping him. So this is a good way for us to see, again, one of Jesus' teachings and how it was put into practice in a real situation, and how we can bring that teachings to our own individual situations. Can be at work, like we are at work and suddenly we are like have a lot of workload, we are like under stress. Let's shut the door, let's take quiet for a moment, for 1 minute, 2 minutes, and pray and elevate our thoughts, or try to reconnect ourselves how important it is. Like we're not talking here about like being about silence, that we need to stay 1 hour in silence throughout the day, that we need to go to a place and stay there for several minutes to be able to recharge ourselves. We can be in the middle of a noisy place, we can be in the middle of a activity that we have, and at a single moment we can do that. We can do this that Jesus says. We can shut the door, close the room, and keep praying and elevating our thoughts in silence. And here, just so for us to finish, I brought this from the book The Essential, or O Essencial in Portuguese, from Emmanuel. So it is a few verses that I thought was very interesting for us to finish here this talk and also to reflect about it. So Emmanuel says, the verb is worth more when you learn how to listen. Cultivate whatever you are, the strength of silence. Contemplate nature, serving without splurge. The sun shines without noise, the flower is born without noise. The sentence that builds will always be a blessing, but listen, the silence brings the voices of God. So I think it was a good way, it is a good way for us to summarize what we saw, the teachings that we saw, Jesus' teachings, and all that we saw since the beginning. So it's important for us to be silent, so we can learn how to listen. We can keep others the opportunity to listen. It's good for us to have the silence in our lives, so we can contemplate, like they say here, nature, contemplate God's creation around us. So it is also a way for us to connect to God. It is important for us to have this moment of silence, for us to elevate our thoughts, and for us to connect ourselves to the good spirits around us, to our guardian angel. And by doing that, we are connecting ourselves to God. So I hope that it was helpful to all of us. I know that I myself, I could, while I was studying, I could bring a few moments to think about my daily life and how I can improve my daily life by using this moments of silence myself, and I hope that we all can see all these teachings, all these lessons, and it can be helpful to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcelo. Thank you for your reflections you provided. I just love, what you said. It's like, are you saying that to myself, to me? It was very, very good. Let me throw my 2 cents in here. It's a personal experience that I think it's worth mentioning here. Due to professional reasons, a long time ago, I had to step in or walk into an echoic chamber, which is a soundproof, zero soundproof chamber used in sound research by several different companies. And the idea is to establish the sound of reference, 0 decibels, nothing. So before you walk in, it's such an experience, because we're, like you said in the beginning, we are so surrounded by all these sounds and noises and all. And before you walk in, you have an instructor telling you what to expect, because it's a shock. So, he briefed on the subject for like 10 minutes. It was a group of people, but you can only go, you have to go in alone. You go one person at a time. So, he talks about it, and I'm listening to that, and I said, it can't be that bad. And he said, you cannot take a watch with you inside, nothing. You're going in, and this is what you have to, it's going to test your patience first, because for the average person, in the first 6 minutes, you're going to be totally lost. And then you start to calm down, and we're going to let you inside for 12 minutes. So I walk in, and oh my God, it was so difficult. I was incredibly in such a discomfort, because it's everything different from what we know. I could hear the blood flowing. It's an incredible sensation. And I think that explains, it goes exactly what you said in the beginning. We are so used to all this noise, to all this interference, that we don't, it's hard to look inside. It's hard to, go deep into the soul. I don't know. I just thought it was great.
Wow, that should be fantastic to hear the sounds that we have, like within us, the blood, the heartbeat, and all this, that usually we completely forget that we have those.
Yeah. And it's that sound like liquid going through pipes, all that thing. It's incredible. It's unbelievable. And when you start talking in the beginning, I said, oh my God, that is exactly what it is. We don't stop and listen. Okay, Marcelo. So please stay with us for the Q&A session. We're going to start shortly after these announcements. First of all, the podcast series, series, Psychology and Spirituality. It's a bridge to a better life based on the works by Joanna De Angelis. It's a new episode every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It's available on YouTube and Spotify. The Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks are based on the works by Joanna De Angelis, and will offer a safe space to confront, compare, correlate, and expand spirituality concepts from a psychological lens, bringing insights, actionable tips, and real-world advice to help us lead a better life. Also, the USSF, United States Spiritist Federation, has launched a new Spiritist app called Be My Hope, available for download either on the App Store or Google Play. This brand new app offers uplifting content in a collection of videos, daily messages, and audio materials. Download it now. On the screen, please note that there is a QR code. If you want to help the USSF produce more publications and promote Spiritism to everyone, scan the QR code on the screen for your donation. Okay, so let's start now addressing the questions and comments from the audience. And if you haven't put your question yet, there's still time for it. Let's see if we have any questions. Here it is from the U.S. Spiritist Federation. In works of fraternal assistance, to listen is more important than to talk. How can we learn to control our impulses to talk and give advice instead of just listening and giving moral support?
Yeah, that's that's a good one. When I was in New York, I was a worker of Inner Enlightenment Spiritual Society, and I used to work in the fraternal assistance, and that was something that like they really reinforced that we are there to listen. We are there to not to give our own opinion. We are there not to give our personal advice, but we need to listen, and then we can show like teachings from Spiritism and to guide that person. But it is difficult. It is difficult to control these impulses because, as I said, we learn since we are young that we need to like if someone talks about anything, we need to give our own opinion. We give to express what we have, express our thoughts. Uh, in my own profession, like I work as a journalist. So if I'm interviewing someone, we don't like to have those moments of silence because as soon as someone is finished giving the answer, we need to have the another question ready and ready and ready. And so it's something that we really are used to. And but we when we are doing the fraternal assistance, it is important to give because many times we need to have that in mind. Many times that person does not have anyone else to speak with or to open their hearts and what they are having. So many times that moment, that 1 hour or 45 minutes they have during the fraternal assistance is the only moment that the person will have someone to listen, to really listen to them. And many times it's not about the person uh, talking and receiving advice, but a few times when we are doing the fraternal assistance, or like if I'm the one receiving the assistance at that time, if I go to a fraternal assistance, many times I am the one who needs to listen to myself. So by putting out my worries, by putting out what I'm suffering or what I'm feeling, I will have that moment to listen to myself. But so that's a moment only for that person. So yeah, and a few times, not only during fraternal assistance, but when we are talking to friends, to family members, uh, that's important for us to allow the person to express themselves because a few times they need that moment also to listen to what they're saying and to reflect about that.
And if they don't feel that they are being able to express, themselves, that kind of defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, see if we have another question here. Yeah, from the United States Spirit Federation. Could we say that in a heated conversation, our silence allows us to put reason above instinct before saying anything we can later regret?
That's a good one. Yeah, see that does. Yeah, we can say that, especially going back to the examples that I brought from the book Jesus in the Home. In that book, we can see really well Simon Peter's way of talking and of dealing with the situations, especially in those heated conversations. And we see in a few of those chapters how not only him but all the disciples they start the conversation they are having. They start to have some arguments among themselves, and because we see they're only putting the uh, instinct, like they're putting what they're feeling, and without bringing the reason to the talk. And Jesus is always the one who, okay, let's come down, let's see, let's listen, let's have this moment of silence, because then the disciples they have that moment to hey, yeah, let's keep a few of the examples that I brought, like in the end Jesus gives the lesson, and then he gives a moment for the disciples to express what they want. But as Neo Lucio says, but no one there to break that moment of silence, no one there to say a word. So a few times it is about that because we only have our own instincts, or we just want to say something without bringing the reason, without thinking a little more about that, and the silence allows us to do that.
Yeah, that's true. And very interesting. Let's see if we have another question. Yes, Daniel Santos. What is the role of silence in both verbal and nonverbal communication?
I think exactly what we said, to give this moment for us to uh, first to allow others to express themselves, and also for us not to say things that we are going to regret later. And it's interesting that you brought the nonverbal communications, yeah, because I talked about like when we talk, when we write, but a few times we express ourselves with the way we look, can we with the gestures that we have. Like I'm here, I use my hands a lot, so a few times just by the gestures that I do here, I am expressing myself even if I don't say a word. And it's important, like the role of silence would be exactly that, for me not to react. Like I think react or reaction would be a good word for us to use. That the silence brings this opportunity for us not to react, but to have this moment to think before reacting or before expressing ourselves. But that's a great point, that it's not only verbal but non-verbal communications. We express ourselves that way too.
It is a great point. Non-verbal communication. It reminds me of something. When Mother Teresa was here in the early '90s or so in the U.S., she had a group of journalists, and for an interview, and one of them said, you know, you claim you pray all the time. So when you pray, what do you say to God? And she responded, nothing. And then the journalist said, and what God says to you? She said, nothing. So it's the nonverbal. It's the and it's a comfortable silence. Prayer, ties into a comfortable silence.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we have any other questions from the International Spiritist Council. How can we differentiate between those that want to disturb our peace, or we should stay silent, from those that want to have a serious discussion?
Usually that's a tough one, but we can see like non-verbal communication comes to here to it helps us, because by seeing the expressions of the person, if we are talking like in person, we can see and we can try to read how the person is. But a few times we can see by the tone of the voice. For example, if we're speaking, by the tone of the voice, or if it is a text message. That's something that a few times we have issues today uh, with the communication that we have online, like text messages, emails, or social media, because we do not hear the person saying that. So a few times the tone of the voice is very important. Depending on how I say a sentence, I can say the same sentence in a way that I'm trying to insult someone, or that I'm trying just to make a comment, or I'm being sarcastic, or I'm making a joke. So a few times that's an issue that we have today in our world, that when we receive text messages, we never know how the person is trying to express themselves. But because I think it's really important for us to be really able to differentiate in this time. It's not only about what the person says, but how the person says. So it's important for us to analyze and to try to figure out all that. But even in a serious discussion, we need to at least try to keep, can be a few seconds of silence before giving our answers, because as I was saying, like we are really, like we have this tendency today in our society that we cannot have those moments of silence. So if you ask me a question, I need to have the answer right away, and we need can be a few seconds for us to, okay, let me check how I can uh, answer that. Let me check if I have the knowledge to answer that. So can be a few seconds. It is very helpful, even if it is a serious discussion. We need to have those moments of silence. It doesn't mean, of course, if it is the person is trying to disturb us, we can, like, as we saw the examples, we can keep silent, like we don't need to reply. But even if we are going to reply, it's important for us to gather our thoughts before putting that out.
And we can actually tell the person, we get a question or in the middle of a discussion, we can tell them, let me think about this for a second. And then you take whatever, 5-10 seconds, because then the person knows what to expect. That person needs to give you your 5 seconds, your 10 seconds. So it makes more comfortable, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a last question here. Well, let's see. No? Okay. Well, Marcelo, it was very good having you here. Thanks everyone who watched today's talk live and those who have been following us on our weekly Spiritist Talk series. Next Saturday, we will not have the Spiritist Talk series because it's Thanksgiving weekend. So just take the time to enjoy and celebrate with your family and friends and those loved ones. It is such a precious opportunity to do that. Our next Spiritist Talk will be on December the 2nd. We will announce through our social media channels who is going to be our presenter. Marcelo, before we close the live, can we have you say a prayer for us, please?
Sure. Dear God, beloved brother Jesus, guardian angels, and all the benefactors, and all the spirits that help us here in the US and spreading the Spiritist teachings here and throughout the world. Thank you so much for having this opportunity of have these weekly talks here. Thank you for allowing us to have this moment of reflection and being able to bring these lessons to our daily lives, to be a good example to our neighbors, to our friends and family, and to being able to be a good son to you, a big worker in your vineyard. Thank you so much, and so be it.